Wish I would have known. Hi, and thank you for joining the Wish I Would Have Known podcast, or as we like to call it, WIWHK. I'm your host, Troy Vera. I'm inspired by the variety of surprise twists and turns that people have taken in their careers, and will continue inviting them to share their stories with you. Our guests represent diverse lines of business. You'll meet social workers, symphony musicians, racehorse owners, radio personalities, human resources leaders, commercial real estate lenders, filmmakers, and school principals, just to name a few. Join us and hear what has worked for them and what might just spark a fire in you. This podcast, as always, is going to be a conversation between friends and peers, nothing too crazy or fancy. We'll be sharing life's experiences in the interest of helping you grow and succeed in your current or even a new career field. Today's guest is Ryan McDonald, and he's joining us today to talk about his career journey as an interactive producer. So let's get to know Ryan a little bit better. Hi, Ryan.
Hi. Morning, mornsternoon, depending on time zones.
Well, in the digital space, it's all just a beautiful day.
True.
So tell me a little bit about what you do.
Oh, wow. What I do, currently, I am an interactive producer for Walt Disney Imagineering. So we make at-scale video games in theme parks. My position didn't exist 2 years ago, so it's always interesting to tell people what I do. My dad still doesn't understand what I do. I think he thinks I pick up trash in the park or something like that. But I am the conduit between the vendors that we have that make the end experiences and the creatives that we have in-house that come up with the crazy ideas. So I sit between like the media team that does the artwork, the interactives team that does the hardware stuff, and the creative, because this poor creative person could be an architect or an artist who has no idea the difference between an Unreal or a Unity or what other sort of stuff. So I come in and help them all out. And the world is gamified now. So if you think of everything, what you have from the apps you play on your phone to the gamification of the purchasing experience and shopping with Temu, we should have people in-house that think of that as well. So I get to come in and be that voice and the creative person at the table and help them to connect all the dots along the way.
Oh, it's phenomenal. And I believe it's a really rewarding career also to see your finished product as an end user, as a spectator, as hard as it is as creative to sort of switch off your brain. You're in there, you're enjoying it, so you don't have to think about, what, I wish I would have trimmed that half a second off of the intro or whatever. You just kind of have to turn it
always.
It's never perfect, but yep. The perfect be the enemy of done, right?
Yes, let great be the enemy of good. And sometimes I have to be that bad guy too and go like, hey, we've got 2 weeks, we've got 1 week, we've got 3, 2, 1 days, and that's it. You got to put it down. You can't time box creativity, but we have to, because otherwise we'll never get stuff done.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you could always be adjusting and tweaking. So
little forever. And you're the only one's going to know that. The end person isn't going to understand or even know that exists or know you flubbed up on the day of. You're never going to forget it, but they're never going to know.
As a web developer and graphic designer, I would always strive for pixel perfection. And sometimes if something went to print that was just a little off, every time I look at that design, even though it might have won an award or whatever, humble brag, but it's like, oh man, I
wish I would have.
Yeah. So tell me about somebody who was a role model in your career and your early work life.
Oh man, early work life is interesting too, because what I did early on, you know me from a different life. Like I did a bunch of different things. I was wanted to be an actor and then got into web production because I was the only one of my friends that had a computer that could run the cracked versions of Dreamweaver and Photoshop that we got off the internet. And then ended up stumbling into like large scale paintball production and other fun stuff like that. So like there wasn't many people early on in that side. I didn't really start my career till I was about 30 or so. And I lucked out that I stumbled onto, that was my first position here at Disney, was the first like real position I had. And I had an awesome pair of a senior producer and executive producer who really went behind the curtain and showed me how the sausage was made and really put a human face on a lot of stuff and walked me through that and understood that we all make mistakes and we're all humans. And there was a time where the end of a big, very heated discussion, like everybody else left except for us producers and the EP. And she turned to everybody and went, I'm so afraid that one day someone's going to kick the door open and walk in and be like, who's in charge here? I'll raise my hand like, oh, that's cute. No, can we get an adult in here, please? Because you tried, but no, we need a real adult in the room, please. And so we're all just kids grown tall in a lot of what we do too. So having that and understanding that and really having my back, and your position where you are now is really dependent on who is your direct supervisor, because that is the person who can either like help or hinder you in your personal and your career path too. So having those advocates early on are great. And having a bad person early on can give you a lot of bad work skills that takes a number more years to break out.
Yeah, we all run into those people who are just sort of like sandpaper to your creative soul. Can you shed some light on some bad advice or maybe an emotional slight that gave you some fuel in your tank to prove them wrong or be a little bit more successful?
You will find some prickly people, regardless of whatever you, especially when you do something creative, where everybody has an opinion. And all of your opinions are valid. You can't tell someone that their opinion is wrong. And people get up to the top ranks of things and aren't used to being told no. And I took that as like a personal offense in the beginning, where somebody didn't like me for whatever reason. A friend of mine is an actor and talks about how the audition process for him, he had to let it go because you don't know that person's background, how they woke up, other stuff that's going on in their lives. You might remind them of somebody from X and Y, the time they dealt with somebody with your position name or whatever else. There's a lot of baggage they bring to it too that you don't know about. And so coming at it with some of that empathy, sometimes a-holes are just going to be a-holes and you just got to let that go. But if you can come through and find out the reason why, for example, we were working on a project, Justice League VR. And one of the main executives over at Warner Brothers came in and was just one of those people who sucked up all the oxygen from the room, where his voice was the loudest voice. And he would scream and yell and curse and hang up on people and threaten and all this stuff. And it wasn't until I sat down with him and found out the reason why. What's going on? Why are you doing that? And listen to him. Sometimes some people just need to be listened to, and they just want to hear validated. They've got experience. They've got stuff. They just felt like they get it off their chest and they're worried about it. And they want to be the best thing they can. And sometimes that's enough just to go. And so I then became his advocate and taught him a lot of the buzzwords and information that he needed to then, in his updates to his boss, look like a super cool badass. And then would come back to me and be like, oh, we rocked it, man. And then it went from being 4-letter curse words text to a bunch of cute little emoji gifs to me back and forth. And it was wonderful. It was a great transition. And that really changed the way I look at people now, to try and find out why and the underlying stuff.
Yeah, you went kind of from Itchy and Scratchy to Fred and Barney, right?
Yeah. Hey, boo-boo.
So what do you think that a common mistake that people make that you've overcome, you've sort of risen above, but you like to see other people say, you know what, I can see it coming up, and I'm going to either stop or veer to the right, veer to the left, instead of driving right through it and feeling the pain or the sting of perhaps a bad decision?
We do this when we finish a project. We go through a retrospective where we usually go like, what worked well, what could have gone better. But I ended up using the sailboat analogy for that, which is, what is the island or the goal that everybody's going towards? What is the wind or the good things that's pushing you towards that goal? The anchor or the bad things that are dragging you back from reaching that? And then the big one is, what rocks or icebergs or big problems do people have? And when you're on a team that have done this before, people going like, I know that's a thing. And we really got to make sure we don't do that again the next time. And listening to your team and finding out how to do that and how to navigate around those icebergs. And I have a bit of a Cassandra complex where I go through and have gone through this enough to see the patterns, what's happening, and then raise the flags and tell everybody. And the boss is like, nope, we're going to do it anyway. And so I just have an ongoing list of mental I told you so's just to be ready. You're like, oh, that's an old one, dust it off. Yep, that was from 6 months ago when I said that was going to happen. So just be there ready to then not only tell them I told you so, but in the good way of, oh, cool. Now some people have to experience things, because you can tell them, but you can't experience it for them. And sometimes they have to feel the hurt themselves to understand it. And then you can be there to pick them up, dust them off, and be like, see, now let's find a way around that. And they go, oh, okay, now I get it.
I guess there's a common saying right now, sort of keeping the receipts. And you might show the receipt to them in private, saying, I sent you an email about this 3 months ago. What can you and I do to fix this? Or if they throw you
Yes.
off the boat, you can be
Hmm.
waving the stack of receipts and say, "Hey, let me back on.
Yeah.
I've got some information that Ted didn't listen to what I was saying," and stand up for yourself and back yourself up. Because it's just the modern work world is pretty cutthroat, and it's nothing like our parents or even our aunts and uncles experienced. There's a lot more quick to let somebody go. It's hard to find somebody who's been at a job for
Yeah.
10, 15, 20 years. And just because the pressure is so much higher, but there's a lot more at stake.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that you can't have that. My dad, joking earlier before we recorded about describing me as a plumber, my dad is a plumber and took over the plumbing business from my grandfather and eventually retired just before COVID. Terrific timing, Dad, to get out of the plumbing business. And he had that one job his entire life. And
Yeah,
then he said, Ryan, every 2 to 3 years, you either have a new job or a new position. That doesn't look good. And I was like, Dad, that's the world we live in.
yeah,
There is not necessarily, there isn't a Ma Bell anymore where you can start in and have that job all the way through your life. You could be the best performing person in the highest ranked division within a great company. And if your project ends about the same time, they need a 14% cut across the board. It's nothing personal. It's just business, and they'll let you and your entire team go. It's tough, and you can't take it personal, and you will. But you also got to be able to dust yourself off and give yourself that pep talk and keep on going.
yeah. Not a whole lot of people are getting that gold watch and the big dinner. My wife's father was a butcher for nigh on 50 years or so, and it's a tough bar for everybody to kind of live
Yeah,
up to. It's something that obviously we aspire to, but now our careers are so compartmentalized that we still do what we do. We just do it somewhere else.
yeah.
And but we're still doing what we're doing, and that really dovetails right into a another question I like to ask is about: would you rather have fleeting and lucrative success or deliberate and slow growth?
Why not both? I mean, where I started here, working with the team that did Where's My Water, one of the top 10 apps on the App Store of all time, humble brag there too. There's a lot of learning, a lot of understanding, a lot of experience, and that brings a group together. And then it was sort of like we're a bunch of ladybugs where we went off into other creative fields and things in Southern California, but then we came back together. And so it's great to have that success in the beginning and have that be with a tight group, feel that feeling of what that is, understand what that's like. You don't want to chase that the rest of your career, but then you can use that experience to build your own version of that and to really know how that is and get that for yourself. So start off with a big win and then just a nice slow burn the rest of your career doing cool stuff that you like with people that you like to hang out with.
I love it. Yeah, just kind of succeed early and then have options.
Mm-hmm. I
It's
mean, there are the people who succeed too early, and then they're trying to chase the dragon their entire life, like trying to have that again. When can I get that? Like you might not. That might be lightning in a bottle, and be okay with that, and love that, and steep in that moment, and love that moment for what it is, and then let it go, and just really be true to yourself the rest of the time.
some people kind of they earn the generational wealth and then they burn through it, and I guess they embrace the suffering and they think, well, if
Mm-hmm.
it was good enough for a famous person, it's good enough for me. You're not Motley Crue. You
Yeah,
don't have
yeah,
this mailbox money that you're getting. You're going to have to either scale down your life or completely rethink and hopefully keep yourself out of rehab. So, that
yeah.
there's a lot of good people around you. So, what drives you to continue to grow and succeed and keep your level head on?
My wife and my kid. That's a very corny answer, but it's very true. One of the quotes is, "I strive to be the person that they assume I already am."
Mhm.
So I go home and my kid thinks I'm a rock star, and that is amazing because they're 17, and that is very unique, especially in today's age.
Mhm.
And a wonderful, supportive, loving wife when I come home, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, you're living the dream. You're doing all the stuff." I'm like, "Okay." Inside yourself, you've got that little kid inside you that's like that scared 8-year old perpetually. That's like
Yeah.
you are a piece of crap. They're going to find out all that imposter syndrome and all that stuff. Once they find out, they're going to fire you, and you're like, no, no, no. So it's good to have those people around to do that. And a little bit of like, who could your person be that you can pretend to be? I put this on LinkedIn a while ago. Like mine is like, what would the doctor do? So when I'm in those moments where there's uncertainty and a bunch of people and all heads turn to me, like, what would Doctor Who do in this moment? And so you have that other persona that you can lean on a little bit, not like disassociation or anything like that, but it still is good to be like, what's the rock star version of you that everybody assumes you are, that you inside know you're not, but can eventually get to.
So you mentioned your younger self just a minute ago. What did you want to be when you were 10? What was young Ryan aspiring to be when he was sitting there in, third grade or whatever, kind of looking up out the window?
A mix of a bunch of different things. I wanted to be an actor. I love making people laugh and telling stories and jokes and stuff. Class clown, not surprising. I also was so crazy into comic books at that time. So like a superhero and maybe like a Buckaroo Banzai, where you got a bunch of those things, where you got like your crew of your friends, you're a superhero, but you're also a rock star at the same time.
Your ragtag bunch of rapscallions.
And Jeff Goldblum in a cowboy outfit. How can you say no to that? Every kid wants that, right?
Yeah. When I think about that, I remember my friend and I went to go see that movie in the theaters, and I can't remember if it was before or shortly thereafter. There was another movie called Condor Man, and we would just run around his backyard. He had a treehouse and pretty good sized property, so we would just imagine things all day long. Sometimes we would come back in and write stuff down, or do a drawing of what we just did, and that led to kind of that storytelling kind of mindset. That was a lot of fun. So as people get to work with you, get to know you, kind of your sense of humor, but also your passion and drive for what you do, what's your work language? What helps people get to know you and find out how to make you tick? How would people do that?
That's changed over time. It's sort of like Catcher in the Rye style, where like, who's your favorite superhero character? Like, oh yeah, I was Spider-Man, Robin, and then became like Nightwing, Batman, and then ended up like Mr. Fantastic, where I get to fly around with my family and doing fun things. Same thing, like in the beginning, I was that funny sort of like dude that was making everybody laugh and bring everybody together through fun shenanigans, and then found that I'm a big brother, and so became the big brother for a lot of people and mentor, and now got like that cool uncle dad vibes. And so that's a lot of what I bring, that very supportive. I mean, we're all in this position doing what we do for a reason. There was a lot of trust to get this job, and so I should trust you to do what you do. And there's a lot of that, a lot of helping people. My job as a producer, if I'm doing my job correctly, you should only single-handedly have to focus on your job. Design doesn't have to worry about tech. Tech doesn't have to worry about art. You know that if there's a problem, you put your hand up, I grab that out of your hand, I go off and I find the solution for you. Whether that's software, information, people, a better seat, whatever sort of stuff to get you so that, imagine that, you just focus on your one job. It's amazing. And then there's that trust built in with everybody else that there will be changes. Things will get weird. Stuff will break, but I will give you enough runway in front of you to continue doing what you need and have that transparency around everybody to be able to know where we're all going, the direction, and why. So I guess it would be like trust, morale, transparency.
And that also leads to contentment. You as a leader are happy every time you close out for the day, when you turn everything off and walk away, go home, and they, in turn, are happy enough to come back tomorrow and continue to be excellent at what they're doing and know that they have a supportive boss who's not just going to take the credit, but share the victories.
Yeah, you'll see that, and how what I do folds up to the bigger, greater goal. There was the story was that John F. Kennedy was over in Kennedy Space Center talking to everybody over at JPL. Like, what do you do? I'm an engineer. Well, what do you do? Oh, I'm helping put a man on the moon. And the same thing, went around talking to the janitor. And the janitor's like, oh, he said, what's your job? The janitor said, I'm helping put a man on the moon. Really? Yes. I'm cleaning up the spaces. I'm keeping it all safe. I'm doing all this stuff so their engineers can do the job, so the such and such, so we can get a man on the moon. They all felt like they were a part of this something bigger than themselves, which is great.
Yeah, like this real true esprit de corps. We're doing it for a reason. I love that.
Joe Rohde over here at Imagineering was talking about that. He said, like, they think that there's a finite amount of creativity. So if you're here doing stuff that doesn't feed that creative or doesn't scratch that itch, that you'll be fine with that. It's like, no, you don't understand. We need to feed that because we are creative. So we want to get that to you in your daily, but also allow you to explore what new other avenues you have available to you on the side. Because otherwise they'll get bored and they'll get angsty and they'll just be like doing Kanban in out. Like it's just like forever. And that's the feeling of even if we have a milestone of a total amount of tickets or a something that we can aspire to a month out from now. Otherwise, that endless cycle of in and out, it just kills my soul.
Yeah.
So
Feel like Sisyphus after a while.
a little bit, yeah. So even if it's fake self-made milestones or self-imposed sort of deadlines or some other thing like that, feels like, okay, at least we're chunking away the progression of time, especially now that it's winter and I'm getting in and like working with people in Florida, getting in at like 7:30 in the morning and leaving at like 6 p.m. And I'm like, it's dark and it's dark. And there's the progression of time. And I look in the mirror and all of this is here and all of that isn't. And I'm like, what am I doing this for?
Well, you're doing it for your family and then that legacy, right? So trust is super important in everything that we do. We have to be able to delegate and not feel like we have to take on the weight of the world ourselves, pulling in the same direction. I think that's really insightful. As you create people around you, sometimes they're within the walls and sometimes they're outside, with peers and
Yeah.
folks within the industry. What's your take on networking? Do you attend mixers and trade events?
I don't really that much. I'm terrible at that. That's something that I've really underutilized. I felt like it was cheating. I was the person in school who never made use of office hours or talking to the professor or any of the stuff. My wife went back to school for the cordon bleu, and she said that she felt like that old woman, like the Hermione Granger of every class, where at the end, the teacher would end 10 minutes early and be like, well, if anybody has any questions, she's like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And all the young kids would look at her and glare. She's like, I am paying for this time. I'm going to use the most out of it.
Yeah.
And I never really did that. And that's one of the things I wish I would have done more is reach out to those people, hang out with those folks. You've got the mentors. Here in Imagineering, we talk a lot about that coffee time. We've got internal Slack channel, like reach out to somebody, ask them to go out for coffee and just pick their brain. Can I pick your brain? Quote unquote, sort of thing. I'm on LinkedIn. That's my main place where I go for a lot of that information. I don't go and do a lot of mixers, although a friend of mine recently was brought in as an ambassador to Open Water, which is an interesting group. It's sort of like a older folks, us middle-aged folks hangout sesh. But yeah. So like you can go, you can chat with people, you can meet folks, and like we're all unique individual unicorns. And so it's interesting to see, especially folks of a certain age, growing up with computers and then having different generations. And how does it feel to be the boss in charge of these people and these new kids and the languages they use and the way that they interact with you and technology and the world, sort of thing. So that's good to have those check-ins.
For sure. I was just thinking recently about how the dynamics of language and how it can either bring people in or keep people out. And there's all this new slang, and there's always a new cycle of slang every 5 or 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, even back in the 70s and 80s, you had jive and you had the little inside jokes and all that kind of stuff from metalheads, or, you just had like those little internal sayings and those things that made you your own little community. And, us as professionals now, we try to ditch the jargon, but we still have some of
Mm-hmm.
those things where we just, somebody says, "Oh, how you doing today? I'm just embracing the suck." That means something to us,
Yeah.
Other people
Yeah.
are like, embracing, what do you mean embracing the suck?
What? Huh?
No, that's just being happy despite whatever we're having to shovel today.
Yeah, I realized that one of my show producers on a project, we speak a lot in GIFs on Slack back and forth to each other.
Mhm.
And that's great until we realized that one of our tech leads is from France and he doesn't get all of the 90s sort of like back and forth things that we're talking about. Like, oh, do we need an artist first Thursday? Yeah, I'll call dibs on him. Dibs. He's like, I don't understand what the dibs is. I'm like, oh crap, that's right. Okay, cool.
Yeah, or a little like the gif of Michelle Tanner. You got it, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
to us, okay, that's our language, but
Mhm.
what's this? Who's that
Not
kid?
so much. Yeah, be aware of that too. Yeah.
So, as the title of the podcast kind of hints at, what do you wish that someone would have told you 5, 10, 20 years ago that would help you be a little bit more at peace or feel a little bit more successful?
In general, or like invest in Apple, or
I mean, yeah, there
I
might have
mean,
been those things that say, okay, avoid this big company or go towards that one, but just kind of in general as it relates to your career now, like if you would have taken a class, if you would have studied a little bit more in creative writing, if you would have volunteered, what's that thing that you wish you would have known to make Ryan a little bit more, sort of at peace here in
oh
this?
my gosh. Yeah. I've stumbled onto a lot of the skills that I have. Like I said, I had a cracked version of Photoshop where I learned how to do photo editing and stuff like that. And then a lot of 2D print work came from that, and then website design. But the world today is so much easier and full of that. Like, I would have had to buy a book on Photoshop or Dreamweaver or something else, an expensive book that I would schlep around. And as soon as I purchased it, it would be out of date for like the new version. Where
Yeah.
now you've got YouTube, you've got a bunch of other places that you can get all these Reddit, Stack Overflowed, all these other places that like I wish I would have had that available or leverage that, like the mentorship and teachers and all sort of stuff to learn more about. Unreal is where the game engine of choice. That's what we're building everything in is Unreal. And I know enough to be dangerous. I know how to get into a build, open a build, QA test some stuff, but I can't really dig into it and play around with it, if I had more of that, I'd be able to speak the jargon and call BS on stuff and be able to hack some stuff together myself. Yeah, so I guess get more into that.
At least you know what excellence should look like, even if you can't go line by line through 10,000 lines of code. You can
Mm-hmm.
say this transition needs more either speed or more drag. These colors need to be sharper here. This movement is blurry. This is going to lead to a user experience that's either disorienting or perhaps even disappointing. And you can articulate that, and you at least know how to give the SLAs and say, okay, I'm going to give you
Yep.
2 days to sharpen this up. And while you're doing that, they're going to adjust the audio track to pair up with what you're doing. So you have a day and a half, they're going to have a half a day. Let's everybody come together again. And you can shepherd that progress and still know what it's supposed to look like without actually having to be hands on keyboard.
Yeah, I know enough of that experience. I mean, I was living overseas working as a producer for a mobile game studio there,
Mhm.
and they wanted that style because I would just come from DreamWorks. Like, we want that level of perfection, that level of detail. And I knew enough to know when it wasn't right, but I didn't know enough to say what I needed. So I literally talked to my art lead and like, okay, you can see that the buttons over here don't match the buttons over there with the style and the highlight and stroke. So if you art term, the color palette is like, okay, I get it. You want it secondary, not tertiary. So I'm like, yes, yes, art term, art term. So I can say it's not quite right, but I didn't have the knowledge of the verbiage to be able to say what it needs to get it better, which is the most annoying feedback to get creatively is like, oh yeah, just do it again. What don't you like? I just don't like it.
There's that thing with creatives, it doesn't look like that way on my screen, or can you tweak it,
Mm-hmm.
or, zhuzh it up a little bit, or I'm not
Oh,
feeling it, I'm not crazy about
God.
it. There,
The
that,
two words that I hate that I have a jar for, a virtual jar, and people know whenever they say it, I point a finger, okay, a dollar in the jar, just. The word just. Can you just?
yeah.
Because we are one step away from magic in what we do in technology and stuff. Where we were talking to Justice League VR and going like, okay, what you want to do is building this 3D world inside this to play on a phone that you strap to your face in VR. That is crazy. There's not enough processing power in this to be able to not stutter and judder and make you want to throw up. It's like, well, why not? I can play a movie back at 4K on my phone just fine.
Hmm.
Isn't it just like that? You just need to. I'm like, no, 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 no. That is playing something back. That is not taking that world and rotating and redrawing it for every frame at 60 frames. Oh, okay. So some of that is teaching them and taking them on the trip. And then they've got a big plaque behind me that says, I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. And
Oh,
there's some
that's so
people
good.
just won't get it. No matter what you do, they just won't get it.
I was kind of asking you earlier about maybe like a quote that resonates with you. I really like that one. I can explain it to you, but I can't understand it for you. And something that you mentioned just a moment ago kind of gave me a spark of inspiration about you need to adjust your just.
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah.
You might say, tell somebody, hey, you need to change your tone. Well, let's adjust your just right here because your just
Mhm.
to me means a day and a half of work.
Yes.
I have done this to this point. Is it perfect? Is it good? It's always going to be under construction. Let's
Hmm.
deploy and let's do it in our V2 or whatever. So maybe kind of
Yes.
that's the just. But are there any other quotes or something that's on a coffee cup or a t-shirt, maybe a little plaque at home or whatever that really resonates with you?
There's one that my old executive producer, Meg Crowell over at Deluxe VR,
Mhm.
said, talking about this guy that I eventually turned and became my gift buddy from
Mhm.
text. But she used to say, you can lead an a-hole to water, but they're just going to pee in it. And
Yeah.
And there are some of those people that you just can't crack, and you're going to lead them to a thing, and they're going to see it, and they're going to love it, and they're going to just trash it despite themselves. I'm like, what are you doing? This is your thing that you are destroying right now. Like, and then they'll go and then go like, well, there's pee in this water. Like, yeah, you peed in it, dude. Oh, I don't know about that. We got to change something. I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, come on. And
uh,
there's some of those people that just are, that's just how they are. What we say too is our old tagline, we're making the experiences of tomorrow with yesterday's technology. And so they don't understand the limitations of the technology, either the hardware, the software, the engine, the other stuff, the money, the time, the people work that it takes to do it. And so it is quote unquote just is you come back and you look at the schedule with them. And that's what I love to do is get a piece of paper. This is the schedule. And that changes the conversation from you versus me. You could change my mind. I could change your mind versus you and I against the paper. Let's
mhm.
both look at this paper together. And these are the levers we have to pull. We can change these. We can change this person around, but this is what that impact has because
Yeah.
change isn't free. That's another quote. Change isn't free. And so then they go, oh, and then they look at it and go, well, could we do that? What do you think? That would mean that we'd have to push this out. Oh, yeah, we can't do that. And then at the end, they go, yeah, I guess we can't do that. And you go, well, I guess we can't do that. Oh, darn. And
Mhm.
then it's them making their decision. They came to it versus you saying something and then going, I don't know about that. And I don't really trust that. I don't think
Yeah.
about that.
When I used to work in an ad agency, we had a fair amount of back and forth with our clientele. And what I did is I developed a calculator. And so when I was on the phone with them, I said, okay, here's the amount of hours that it takes to change a logo, update the
Mm-hmm.
background of a website, et cetera, et cetera. And I'd be on the phone, and let's just say the lawyer's name is, Michael. Okay, Michael, so what would you like to do? Okay, that. Okay, that is going to cost you $460 because that's my
Mm-hmm.
hourly rate.
Mm-hmm.
That's a reasonable time frame. So do you $460 like that idea? I don't know. Can you, and he would throw like adjust, can you just do this? Well, how about we adjust it so that way we can do $200 worth of work and find priority. Okay, we're going to change your background color and we're going to make the site whiter a little bit or more friendly for
Mm-hmm.
mobile. This was around the early
Yeah.
2010s, so mobile interactivity really wasn't a huge thing. Bootstrap really wasn't much of a thing, but the whole idea is break it down to the cost. And some people really care about the dollars and cents. So
Yep.
if you take those pragmatic conversations and a negotiation and say it's going to cost this much,
Yeah.
they might go, "Whoa, wait a minute, we don't."
Hold on.
Well, you don't have that much money, we don't have that much time. So where can we find a nice little middle ground here and turn that into a transaction rather than a you do this or your butt's grass?
Yeah, there is some of that where there's the weird client and vendor relationship too, and massaging that.
Mhm.
Was really happy and really prided myself on changing those relationships, and it became more friendships near the end.
Mhm.
And there was that built-in trust, that level of trust, and that takes time. And that takes going through the fire together and coming through the other side and being like, oh, now we're all battle hardened. We all know each other. We know the strengths and weaknesses and whatever. And okay, we speak that shorthand, which is helpful too.
Yeah, you were
On some of
talking
these new
earlier.
projects, I'm like, can we just fast forward 3 years where we know and trust and love each other, please?
Mhm.
Because this is annoying to do this all over again. It's like
Yeah,
dating every new project.
totally. We were talking earlier about your hobby of paintball, and I'm sure when you're on the outdoor battlefield or like an indoor stadium kind of thing where you're hiding behind barricades and obstacles, and you're trying not to get hit, but you're also covering your teammates. There's that mutual competition. You might take one for somebody, but then your captain, for instance, will stay alive and you'll be able to capture the flag or get to the next round or whatever that is. You might catch a few thwaps, but you know what? You're going to take the hit for the team. Everybody wins at the end of the day, and you'll go out for pizza and beer at the end.
Yeah, I mean, they talk about that as like a team building exercise, but it really is because going through and just being part of tournament paintball for the first time, I was used to being one of those yahoos in the woods sort of thing,
Mhm.
playing like cops and rubbers, pew pew pew. But that is very tight, and it's all about communication and angles
Yeah.
and making sure that the right people are in the right place at the right time to make the right move. And whether that means me laying down cover fire here to allow you to get into that position, you better communicate when you get there. We better have that back and forth. And it's great to then get a team out there and go, hey, afterwards, did you notice how when Tom went right, you knew there was somebody there and you didn't tell him? So he got shot out. Like,
Mm.
oh, okay. And getting them to actually communicate. The same thing on a project like this. You know you're going to be 3 days behind with your artwork. You better let us know so that we can then turn and pivot because otherwise it's going to like logjam the entire thing. So there's some fun parallels in that.
Working with your resources and your team, and if somebody comes short, okay, we're going to step up, but then I expect you maybe to cover my back next time.
Mm-hmm.
So, what do you do when the day's done? What's some of the things that help you kind of blow off steam a little bit, or serve as a as an offline hobby?
I eat and cry and sleep. No,
That's one of those. That's a sign for the kitchen. Eat, cry,
oh
sleep.
yeah, eat, cry, sleep, repeat. I got a couple different things. I play video games a lot, like all of us do. It's weird being the target market still at 40 something when we were still the target market when we were little kids. Like all the games and comics and all that is still being marketed towards me. And the same thing too, like playing Dungeons and Dragons still, role playing games, what I do on the side. But now some of the people that I'm playing with are writing modules for Dungeon Crawl Classics or then like writers for D&D. And so I get to hang out and be the munchkin with these people that could then be a part of the books later. It's sort of like when we do a game, a video game or whatever else, you've got your great idea of what it's going to be. But as soon as the public gets a hold of it, it changes. And the same thing here, where I love to be that for these people. They have this great rule set, this great world, and all these new things, and come in and go, if I do this, with that there, that completely breaks the whatever, like, oh man, really? Oh, I didn't even think about that. So it's fun. And then having a 17-year-old, oh, dad, we just got this new thing on PlayStation, trying to get the couch co-op to have those shared moments together that then builds that, which is, I'll take that over anything.
Yeah, that's really cool. I know when I was younger, I had the Atari 2600, and sometimes I would shuttle it back and forth to my cousin's house or my best friend's house, whatever. And the dads and the uncles would always just wrinkle up their face and scrunch up their neck and say, "I don't know why you guys spend all that time on that kind of garbage. That's not going to do anything for you." But nowadays, people have that nostalgic spark. You want to clear a level. You're not going to go to bed until you
Oh,
hit a certain score or
mm-hmm.
get past such and such. And there's still some fun to that. It keeps you young. One of the people I was talking to in another session just talked about the value of play. We can't forget to be innocent and just enjoy what we're doing. That doesn't always have to be task based.
It's a very American thing, though. When I was overseas, we are living in France, and it was interesting. It took about a year for me to change and shift and pivot from being here in Los Angeles, where you have your day job, and then what's your side hustle? What's the thing that you're doing on the side for you? To
Yeah.
then going like, when I'm done, I go home and I'm with my family. That is what I do. I'm like, oh crap, that's right. You've got like work-life balance and have those moments with your family. Why am I working so hard? What is the whole end result of it? Enjoy these moments because they are fleeting. It's
Yeah.
kind of weird.
When you're ready to hang up the mouse at the end of the at the end of your career and ride off into the sunset, what do you see yourself doing when you retire?
We talking about that, maybe moving back overseas, having that. Like my wife and I, we lived in Italy a number of times before we then had the kid and thought that was done, and then we moved to France. And so have a little bit of that gypsy blood is always amazing. My Little sister is a digital nomad now, and she was living in Mexico, and now she's over in Thailand. And so the world is bigger yet smaller.
Mhm.
And so we have the possibility of doing that. So if I'm done with my 9 to 5, I'd love to be a consultant and fly around the world and talk to different people in different countries about the value of play and fun and how to have that we call the Disney's in the details
Hmm.
and that level of that you get from having this experience and people can pay me to do that. Heck yeah, that'd be great.
Well, that's awesome. So if somebody were to, let's say, reach out to you to pick your brain, as you were mentioning earlier, what's a way that they can find you online?
Look me up on LinkedIn, Ryan J. McDonald. I'm the one with the stupid facial hair. So
I'll make sure to put a link in the description. Are you on Instagram or anything like that too?
I am. I'm on Insta at Nerd Papa, Poppa.
Okay, good.
And that's where you'll see some of the other stuff that I'm doing there. It's social is weird. You're talking about wanting to do that, and if we're keeping up with people, what sort of networking stuff we did.
Mhm.
I have to have a social presence nowadays.
Yeah.
And when we hire people too, I hate to say it, I do Google them real quick to see what that slice of life that they are. And so if you want to have that, that's another thing to see like-minded folks. If you're going to find me on LinkedIn, say that you heard me on this podcast because of who I am and who I work with. I get a lot of people asking me, but then not putting a message in what's a very copy pasta to everybody sort of thing.
Yeah.
So this way, at least if I see they're connected to you or they mention the podcast, I'll say yeah. And then, because otherwise it's a backdoor for people to come and go and poach people from my own team or send annoying messages for other people. And it's like, oh, really? How'd you get in? Oh, Ryan? Oops, sorry, my bad.
Yeah, or you connect with them and then they send you a sales pitch 30 seconds later.
Yeah,
And
yeah. No sales pitches. I'm not allowed to listen to anything because the company is so big. I don't know what's going on anywhere else. That's years ago when I was working at Disney Mobile. I went to E3 and these people worked for months for this meeting. I thought we were just chatting, saying hi, getting to know you. And they had a prototype to show me and they had a whole pitch to show me. I'm like, I'm not allowed to see it. I'm sorry, guys, because I don't know if some other group is already working on exactly that same thing.
Mhm.
So I had to walk away. I felt so bad. So
Yeah, in the marketing world, we have an acronym called ABM, or account-based marketing. So somebody found out enough about you, thoughtfully created something, but there was
mm,
that missing point of communication. Does Ryan want it? Can Ryan consume it? And is this good for anybody?
yeah,
There's that balance of what you're doing and does it make sense? And should we take our time and really burn all this energy on it?
yeah. Set the expectation before a meeting. That's something else that I've told my people
Mhm.
on my team. If you get a meeting request that does not have an agenda and does not have anything else in it, feel free to decline it and tell them to talk to me
Mhm.
because otherwise you waste the first 15 minutes of every meeting going like, where are we? What are we doing here? It's all there. Put the links, the pertinent information there so I know what I'm getting into before we get into it.
I heard or saw a really insightful video on LinkedIn recently where it was a leader talking about the 1, 2, 3 methodology that he's
Hmm.
trying to keep with his team. So you come to them with one problem, two solutions, and three potential outcomes. And that really slows people down and makes them think about what's going to happen? Why am I doing this? Is this really a fire? Or can I
Yep.
just throw some water on it and get on with it? And that sort of 1, 2, 3, he makes people bring that to him. And if he'll say, what's your 1, 2, 3? And if they don't, say, okay, take another day and come back to me. If it's a 911, of course, we're going to deal with it. But
Hmm.
get your 1, 2, 3 together and then come to me. And then he said, after a while, people just started coming to them with,
Yep.
here's my 1, 2, 3. What should I do?
Yeah,
And
that's great. Joe Rohde at Imagineer would talk about when he has a creative project that he starts with, he has it boiled down to like the mission statement for what it is. When he did the Aulani, it was Hawaii is Hawaiians. And so whenever somebody would have a problem, he would refer them back to that. Like, okay, what should the wood paneling be on the door be? Like, what do you think? Oh, if it's Hawaii, it should be a Hawaiian natural wood. Great. Who's the artisan that's going to put this art? Okay, well, that refers back. And so he said, it then not only gives people something to focus on, it also stops a lot of the back and forth swirl, and it also empowers them to make these great decisions. He said, I walked through Animal Kingdom and I see this super cool thing. Like, that's wonderful. Like, well, you're the creative director. Didn't you approve that? He's like, no, my team did, because we all agreed around the conceit of it. And then we build the world around that.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that goes to that trust and the
Mhm.
confidence and effective leadership. Thank you again for taking time to enlighten us with your experience and sharing some inspiration.
Thanks for inviting me on. Yeah, definitely reach out.
Awesome. This has been Troy Vera from the WIWHK podcast. Join us again, and we appreciate your time. Wish I would have known.